Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make block letters with a really easy tracing method. Now, if you watched the last video on bubble letters, this is actually a very similar method with a couple of changes. I'm going to show you an easier version of block letters and a little bit more advanced, and you can choose which one is best for you. So let's start with a simple letter. Again, I'm going to write it out just the way I normally would. So I'm just going to write my L. No magic yet, just writing it out the way I normally would. So now I need to trace around it. But the thing is that every time I trace, I want to make sure I have kind of like a right angle, a pointy edge. It's not going to be flowy like the bubble letters would be. So again, I'm going to start with my little X so I know where I started and where to end. And I'm going to go ahead and get my marker. So when I get to the edge of my L, I'm going to make sure I've got a pointy line. I've got my right angle here, and I'm working my way around, tracing with only straight lines. I cannot have any curved lines in a bubble letter. Once I've gone all the way around, I can take my eraser and I'm going to erase out and erase out my X too. So sometimes the letter that you're working with may not be as easy as something like L, which already really has a bunch of straight edges on it. If we look at something like letter O, let's say, okay, your O is really, really curvy. So that's going to make it a little harder to kind of figure out how to turn it into a block letter, which has lots of straight edges and right angles and things like that. So for my O, I'm still going to have my X, okay? I'm going to take my colored material. Again, you know, when you're doing it, you'll probably use pencil the whole time. So I've got my starting point, and right here I see it's curvy. So I'm gonna make sure I give myself that right angle or that point. So as I'm tracing, I'm gonna go just a little bit outside. I'm gonna come up and around. And when I get here, also I gotta be pointy, even though I know it's not. Okay, now I've got my inside too. So my inside also needs to be traced, because if I erased out this pencil, it would look pretty funny because it wouldn't have its inside. So I have to turn this oval shape into more of a rectangle. So I'm going to do that, and I'm just making a rectangle inside, okay, going around, making the pointy edges, and then I can go ahead and erase out. So your block letter takes a little bit more creativity and thinking out of the box in order to turn it into the product that you want at the end, but also not too bad with this tracing method to go around. So this method is going to work for any letter that you have. Again, you just have to be a little creative, and when you see a curved line, you have to turn it into something with a straight edge. With a angle, usually you'll have a right angle when you're using this simple tracing method. So next I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced way to make a block letter. So I had showed you this method where I was simply tracing around but making sure I had right angles and straight lines all the way around. And I'm kind of translating something like an O, which is pretty much like an oval shape, into a rectangle because of the way I'm tracing around it. And that works, and you could definitely use it, but I'm going to show you an even more advanced method of doing the block letters using that thing that I call the triangle method. So I'm going to turn my paper vertical for this so it's nice and big for you. And I'm going to make my letter O. So here's my letter O. Okay, same thing, I'm going to make my X, but this time I'm not going to trace around it with the colored material because I am going to be doing some erasing, and I'm not going to be keeping everything in my outline that's going to go around the original letter. So I'm going to go around the O, and when I get to an edge, I'm going to make sure it's pointy. Again, I'm still going to have those right angles going around, and I'm turning what is kind of like an oval shape into this tall rectangle. And I'm going to do the same thing inside, just like before. Okay, nothing new here yet. So since this letter is so rounded normally, I can use what I call the triangle method to make it look a little bit more curvy. And I'm not even going to erase this out yet. So what I do is I go to my corner. So here's that right angle. And I put a diagonal line. And do you see I made myself a triangle right here? I'm going to trace it with my pencil. So that's why I call it the triangle method. And I'm going to do that on every right angle I can find, all the way around. So I've got 4 of them on the outside. Then I'm going to look at my inside, and I have 4 more. Now watch, I'm going to take my marker to outline it so you can see how this triangle method has changed up my block letter a little bit. So I'm going to trace just those diagonal lines that I added in along with the tracing. Okay, then I can come back with my eraser, and I'm going to get rid of this here. So I think it kind of just looks a little bit more advanced, a little bit more like something that was rounded translated into something with straight edges. So that's my triangle method. Okay, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna erase the outsides of my triangle. And this triangle method really only has to be used with a shape that is rounded, like O, R, P, B, etc. Okay, and you can see I've changed up my O, and it's gonna look a little bit different than when I just simply traced around in a rectangular shape. So that's a little bit more advanced way to do it. You could do that with letter S too. That has a lot of curves. So hope this is helpful. And that's it for creating a block letter.